Hi, I'm Bijou with Novotech, and I'm super duper excited to bring you today's episode. We are reviewing the Sony PlayStation 5. While it may look like a Wi-Fi router with a popped collar, it is packing some serious next-gen power and is sold out immediately at all major retailers. As of right now, there are two versions of this available. There's the digital edition for $400, or this guy who's a little bit thicker and has a Blu-ray disc drive for $500. He's for those of us that still like to buy physical copies of our media. Yes, I still buy games and DVDs and CDs because I don't understand how Spotify works, and I'm scared someone's gonna hack into my mainframe and steal all my games. So anyway, this bad boy is so chock full of upgrades from the last generation, from the load times to the user interface to the controller. Oh my goodness, the controller. Mwah. But let's get into it. Let's start from the top. Let's go. Okay, let's talk graphics. This baby has a high-speed 1 terabyte solid-state drive with crazy fast integrated I/O, which basically means that you get super speedy load times on even the most graphics-intensive games. The PS5 will not keep you waiting, unlike Valve with Half-Life 3, am I right, fellas? With this new generation comes the marvel that is ray tracing. Now, what is that? It's the super neat way that rays of light are individually rendered, meaning that you get hyper-realistic live illumination, shadows, and reflections. While that may seem like a silly use of a whole lot of graphics power, it's a stunning step forward in the aesthetic potential of gaming. It's the step that can be the difference between just enjoying a game and the feeling of that sweet, sweet suspension of disbelief when you are truly immersed in a different world. Now, in what kind of resolution and frame rate might we expect these juicy, juicy graphics? Well, the PlayStation 5 website claims that supported games can be experienced in a buttery smooth 120 frames per second, which is 5 times that of the standard film. And it even claims that there's support for 120 Hz output on 4K displays, and that someday they'll issue an update to support 8K. Dream big, sis, that's a lot of Ks. The video output on this console is definitely impressive, but there are a handful of caveats that we'll get to in a minute. Onward to our favorite part of this console, the DualSense wireless PS5 controller. Of course, there's one included with your console, and then additional controllers go for $70 a piece. Visually, it's definitely the next generation of the PS4 DualShock controller. And I know we're all so sick of the word streamlined, but this bad boy is so streamlined. Look at how aerodynamic. You could throw this thing so far if you wanted to, but I wouldn't recommend it. There are no more raised flat planes like on the DualShock, but we have lost the pops of color from the quintessential shape buttons in exchange for a modern monochrome color scheme. Like its predecessor, the PlayStation 5 controller has a built-in speaker for in-game sound effects, as well as internal accelerometer and gyroscope for motion sensing capabilities in supported games. Of course, it's also rechargeable, but it's been upgraded from a micro USB to a USB-C port, which has a myriad of benefits, my favorite being that you can't plug it in upside down. It's a reversible plug, so you're never going to be doing that USB thing where you keep jamming it in the wrong way and you feel like a dingus. One trait that this shares with the PlayStation 4 version that's a little bit concerning is that the analog sticks are pretty much identical, so you might run into issues with stick drift after a while. The DualSense also boasts a built-in microphone for chatting with your teammates or games that have voice commands. It also has a dedicated mute button and a standard 3.5mm audio jack for the rest of your basic audio needs. The touchpad returns, this time with revamped lighting. Underneath, 1 to 4 lights will display which controller corresponds to which player, and the PS4's light bar has been replaced with these lights on the sides, which are reactive, changing colors to indicate stuff like your in-game health. Also great, no bright light on the back to make that distracting glare on your screen. The share button is now the create button, bringing up a menu that allows you to take screenshots, capture gameplay video, or start live streaming directly from your console. And for the glorious PC gaming master race, this controller is PC compatible. No longer will you be tethered to the Xbox format. Praise be to the digital deities. But by far, the coolest upgrades to this controller are the haptics and triggers. Instead of the PlayStation 4 controller's simple rumble motors, the DualSense has 2 haptic actuators for dynamic feedback from in-game stimuli, like weapons, attacks, and environmental events. Trigger warning, these triggers are amazing. They're placed at a slightly different angle from their predecessors for better ergonomics, but who cares because the triggers are reactive. The tension and haptic response can now adapt to gameplay. Shooting a gun feels different from firing an arrow and feels different from hitting the brakes. You have to feel it to fully understand it, but I assure you it is so stinking cool. Unfortunately, all these sweet mechanical upgrades do take a bit of a toll on the battery life. Our testing gave us about 8 hours of life per charge, which isn't bad, but you'll probably want to store them plugged in so that it doesn't die in the middle of the game. The PlayStation 5 has a respectable roster of new accessories and compatible PlayStation 4 accessories. And for those of you that live with non-gamers, Sony also makes this media remote with an intuitive design so that your roommates can find Netflix real easily without getting their sticky little fingers all over your DualSense. But for all of you true gamers out there, complete your experience with the Pulse 3D wireless headset at a tidy $100. The main feature of these guys is that they're designed to work with the Tempest 3D audio tech, which is the PlayStation 5's custom engine for immersive 3D audio. As of right now, they're the only way to experience this, but Sony's website says that they plan to issue a future update to make their 3D audio compatible with surround sound speaker systems. The HD camera clocks in at a questionable $60. Why is it questionable? Well, you can't use it with PlayStation VR. It seems to be just for streaming, and my thought is, if you're streaming, you probably already have a camera set up, but maybe you want to try doing it through your console. I don't know, man. You do you. Hello. I'm a waste of $60. Anyway, it has 2 lenses that shoot in full 1080 HD with an adjustable stand to attach above or below your TV. The Create tools on the console allow you to crop or remove your background automatically, which is kind of cool, but overall I think most of us can pass on this accessory. We also have the previous gen compatible accessories, like the PlayStation Aim and Move controllers, the PSVR headset, the DualShock 4 controller, and the PlayStation 4 camera. The last 2 are a little tricky though. The PlayStation website actually recommends using the PlayStation 4 controller for VR on the PlayStation 5, though you cannot use the PlayStation 4 controller for other PS5 games, but you do have to use it for PlayStation 4 exclusive games that don't have a PS5 version. That was confusing. Thanks, Sony. Then there's the camera. As I mentioned a moment ago, the PS5 specific camera is not for VR. You have to have the PS4 camera, but it doesn't plug directly into the console, so you have to go to Sony's website and register your camera to apply for an adapter. It's free and ours showed up in about a week, but it's still pretty questionable choices on Sony's part. So, what do we have in the ways of the early game library?
I just want to talk!
It launched with a reasonably sized handful of original and exclusive titles like Spider-Man Miles Morales and Godfall, but most of them are also available on PS4, so you probably won't be buying the whole console for the game selection just yet, but it's a pretty solid library. I mean, they have more exclusive titles than the new Xbox, but that's kind of to be expected from Microsoft. But what's the dirt on this guy? What are his nasty little secrets? Well, the main problem we're having is that it's only got 1 terabyte of storage. That may sound like a lot, but once you factor in that only 825 gigs of that is accessible, it comes to about 8 games, which is not great. On top of that, the cloud storage makes it unnecessarily difficult to transfer your game data from your PS4 to your PS5, so oof, good luck. And then when it comes to playing the games that you did manage to save, there's lagging and stuttering. Now, we only ran into this on titles like Call of Duty, Godfall, and other populated and action-heavy games, but still, this is next gen and we shouldn't already be dealing with this. And oh golly guys, with all of this bragging about graphical capabilities, I feel a little bit betrayed. If you're playing in 4K with ray tracing turned on, gameplay is capped at 30 frames per second. They're advertising 120 and giving us 30. But it's still very pretty. Final thoughts. Do you need one? Is it worth it? PC gamers may fight on this because technically the hardware is already a little bit dated, but they'll definitely want to scoop up the DualSense controllers. As for the rest of us console devotees and casual gamers, it's a powerhouse console, and it definitely has a lot to offer, and ray tracing is really cool. So we here at Nobutech say go for it. The PS5 is totally worth MSRP. If we ever see it back in stock anywhere. Don't get it scalped. Thanks for joining us today. Let us know in the comments which game you're most excited to play on the PlayStation 5. and I'll see you next time.